The grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel shimmered like a jewel box, its towering chandeliers scattering golden light across polished marble floors where waiters glided with trays of sparkling champagne flutes. Ethan Holt, a 38-year-old tech, visionary with a quiet intensity, stood at the heart of the Ascent Foundation's annual gala, his tailored black tuxedo accentuating his lean frame, though his slightly tousled dark hair hinted at a man more at ease in a boardroom than a spotlight. At the podium, he spoke with a steady, warm voice about the Foundation's mission to rebuild schools in the city's neglected corners, his words carrying the weight of someone who believed every child deserved a chance to rise. The crowd, mayors, tech moguls, philanthropists in glittering gowns, listened raptly, their faces glowing with admiration for the man who had transformed a modest startup into a billion-dollar empire while funneling millions into education for the underserved. Ethan's hazel eyes, sharp yet kind, scanned the room, catching smiles from familiar faces, but a faint unease stirred as he noticed two women in plain blazers slip through the gilded entrance, their movements too purposeful for casual guests. He adjusted his silver cufflinks, a nervous habit from his days as a scrappy entrepreneur, dismissing the feeling as fatigue from weeks of sleepless nights planning the gala. The mayor, a jovial man with a booming laugh, approached with a raised glass, praising Ethan's latest donation, laptops for 1,000 students in the city's poorest district, a gift that had teachers weeping with gratitude. Ethan's smile was genuine but restrained, his discomfort with praise evident as he deflected, saying the real heroes were the kids who studied against all odds and the teachers who never gave up on them. Across the room, the women's eyes locked onto him, their steps cutting through the sea of sequins and silk with a precision that made his pulse quicken. He shook hands with the senator, forcing a laugh at a light-hearted quip, but the air felt heavier now, the gala's warmth fading into a distant hum. The taller woman reached him first, her voice slicing through the chatter. "Ethan Holt, you're under arrest for embezzlement and fraud." The words hit like a shockwave, freezing the room into a tableau of stunned faces and half-raised glasses. Gasps rippled through the crowd as camera phones flashed, capturing Ethan's ashen face as cold handcuffs clicked around his wrists, the metal biting into his skin. He stammered, "This is a mistake, there's no way." But the second detective, her face impassive, read his rights in a monotone that drowned out his protests. The ballroom, moments ago alive with laughter, now buzzed with whispers of betrayal, the crowd's adoration curdling into judgment as reporters scrambled to go live, broadcasting the fall of the city's golden sun. Outside, under the hotel's glowing marquee, a crowd swelled against velvet ropes, drawn by the flashing lights of police cars cutting through the night. Among them, two small figures, Mia and Ava, 10-year-old homeless twins in threadbare coats patched with duct tape, pushed through the throng, their smudged faces fierce with urgency as they shouted, "He's innocent! We saw the real thief!" Their voices, raw and piercing, cracked with the desperation of children who knew the truth but were invisible to the world. Mia, the bolder twin, gripped Ava's hand tightly, her knuckles white as they tried to break through the police barrier, only to be shoved back by an officer who barely glanced at their dirt-streaked faces. The twins' cries were swallowed by the chaos, ignored by reporters chasing soundbites and onlookers, gawking at the spectacle of Ethan's downfall. Ethan, now in the back of a police van, its interior cold and reeking of stale metal, caught a fleeting echo of their shouts through the tinted window, a spark of hope flickering in his chest amidst the fog of disbelief. The van's doors slammed shut, muffling the outside world, leaving him alone with his racing thoughts, replaying every transaction, every meeting, searching for a misstep that could explain this nightmare. He thought of his sister, Vanessa, who managed the Foundation's finances. Had she missed something, or was this something darker? Outside, Mia and Ava stood shivering on the sidewalk, their breath visible in the chilly air, their worn sneakers scuffing the pavement as the crowd dispersed. 3 days earlier, while scavenging for food behind the Ascent Foundation's sleek glass office, they had crouched behind a dumpster, invisible as always, and overheard a woman, later revealed as Vanessa, arguing with a man in a dark suit, her silver bracelet glinting under streetlights as she handed him a USB drive. Her voice, low and venomous, had chilled them. "Make it look like Ethan's work or you're done." The man, nervous, had nodded, clutching the drive like it burned. Mia and Ava, schooled by years on the streets to read danger in every glance and gesture, knew they'd witnessed something wrong. Something that tied to the kind man who once slipped them sandwiches at a charity event. His smile brief but warm, a rare light in their shadowed world. Now, as Ethan's van pulled away, Mia whispered to Ava, her voice trembling with resolve, "We have to help him. He doesn't deserve this." Ava, her quieter twin, nodded, her eyes wide with fear, but burning with determination, knowing their secret could free an innocent man, but expose them to dangers they'd learned to evade. They slipped back into the city's alleys, their thin figures blending into the shadows, two girls the world overlooked carrying a truth heavier than they could bear alone. They remembered Ethan's kindness, how he'd knelt to their level, that day asking their names, treating them like they mattered when no one else did. That memory fueled their resolve as they navigated the familiar maze of backstreets, their hearts pounding with the weight of their mission. Somewhere in the city, Ethan sat in the van, his mind racing, haunted by the faint voices he couldn't place, a lifeline in the darkness of his sudden ruin. The twins, huddled in their makeshift shelter of cardboard and blankets, vowed to find someone who would listen, their small hands clasped together, their courage a beacon in a world that had long since turned its back on them. The city's pulse throbbed through its neon-lit veins as Mia and Ava huddled in their makeshift shelter, a cramped nook behind a shuttered deli where stacked crates and a tattered tarp shielded them from the biting wind. The twins, identical, in their wiry frames and tousled brown hair, sat cross-legged on a threadbare blanket, sharing a stale bagel scavenged from a bakery's discard bin, their eyes still wide with the chaos of Ethan Holt's arrest hours earlier. Mia, the bolder twin, chewed slowly, her jaw tight with frustration, as she replayed their failed attempt to be heard, their shouts drowned by the crowd's clamor and the police's indifference. Ava, quieter, but no less determined, traced a crack in the concrete with her finger, whispering, "We tried, Mia, but nobody cares what we say." The weight of their invisibility pressed down, a lesson learned too young after their parents' death in a car crash 2 years prior, leaving them to fend for themselves when foster care threatened to split them apart. They'd chosen the streets, over separation, surviving on wits honed by necessity, learning to read strangers' intentions in a glance, to slip through crowds unseen, to find warmth in the city's forgotten corners. Tonight, though, their usual resilience faltered, the memory of Ethan's pale, stunned face in the police van haunting them, a man who'd once knelt to offer them food, now trapped by a lie they alone could unravel. Mia clenched her fists, her voice fierce. "He was kind to us, Ava. We can't let him stay in jail for something he didn't do." Ava nodded, her eyes glinting with a spark of hope, recalling how Ethan's brief smile at that charity event had felt like a promise that someone saw them even for a moment. 3 days ago, hidden behind a dumpster near the Ascent Foundation's glass tower, they'd overheard the woman with the silver bracelet, Vanessa, they now suspected, plotting to frame Ethan, her words sharp as glass. The records need to point to him, no mistakes. The man she spoke to, nervous and sweating, had clutched a USB drive, muttering about risks, but Vanessa's cold stare silenced him, her bracelet catching the streetlight like a warning. The twins knew the danger of meddling in adult schemes, having dodged threats from street hustlers and overzealous cops, but Ethan's kindness had planted a seed of loyalty they couldn't ignore. Back in their shelter, Mia pulled out a crumpled flyer from the charity event, Ethan's face printed beside the Ascent Foundation's logo, and said, "We need to find someone who'll listen, someone who won't push us away." Ava, ever practical, frowned. "But who? The police didn't care and we don't know anyone else." The city loomed around them, its skyscrapers indifferent, its streets a maze where 2 girls were just shadows to be stepped over. Meanwhile, across town in the sterile chill of a holding cell, Ethan sat on a hard bench, his tuxedo replaced by a scratchy orange jumpsuit, his mind racing to piece together the accusations of embezzlement and fraud. He'd built his company on transparency, every dollar accounted for. Yet the detectives claimed damning evidence, forged contracts, siphoned funds, all pointing to him. He thought of Vanessa, his older sister, who'd handled the foundation's finances with a meticulousness he'd always trusted, but a nagging doubt crept in, her recent distance, her sharp tone when he'd questioned a budget discrepancy last month. The memory of the twins' voices, faint but insistent, echoed in his head. "He's innocent. We saw the real thief." He couldn't see their faces in the chaos, but their urgency clung to him, a lifeline he didn't yet understand. Back in the alley, the twins debated their next move, the cold seeping through their thin coats as a distant siren wailed, a reminder of the world's dangers. Mia suggested the newspaper office, a place they'd passed where reporters might care about truth, but Ava hesitated. What if they laugh at us or call the social workers? The fear of being separated, their deepest wound, held them back, yet the image of Ethan's handcuffed silhouette pushed them forward. They recalled a diner nearby where a kind waitress sometimes slipped them extra fries, a possible ally who might know someone trustworthy. As they packed their few belongings, a cracked water bottle, a worn photo of their parents, Mia's voice softened. "We've been invisible our whole lives, Ava, but maybe this time we can make them see us." Ava squeezed her sister's hand, their bond a fortress against despair, and agreed. "For Ethan, we'll try." They slipped out into the night, the city's glow casting long shadows as they navigated toward the diner, their small figures darting past late-night stragglers, their hearts pounding with purpose. The diner's neon sign flickered, a beacon of warmth, and inside the waitress, a woman with tired eyes and a gentle smile, spotted them hovering by the door. She waved them in, offering a plate of leftover pancakes, her kindness a rare gift. That loosened their guarded tongues. Hesitantly, they shared what they'd seen, the woman with the bracelet, the USB drive, the plot to frame Ethan, their words tumbling out in a rush. The waitress listened, her face growing serious, and said, "You need someone bigger than me, kids. Someone like a reporter who digs for truth." She scribbled a name, Sarah Brooks, on a napkin, a journalist she'd once served who asked questions about the city's underbelly. The twins clutched the napkin like a treasure map, their resolve hardening despite the risks, knowing that speaking out could draw the attention of the woman with the bracelet, whose cold voice still echoed in their minds. As they left the diner, the city's pulse seemed to quicken, the stakes of their mission clearer than ever. They were no longer just surviving, they were fighting for justice, for a man who'd seen them when no one else did. Sarah Brooks leaned against the window of her cramped downtown apartment, the city's restless hum filtering through the glass as she sipped cold coffee, her eyes fixed on the flickering TV screen, replaying Ethan Holt's arrest at the Meridian Hotel Gala 2 nights ago. At 45, Sarah's dark hair was streaked with gray, her face etched with the weariness of a journalist who'd once broken open corruption scandals, but now churned out lifestyle columns about artisanal cafes, a demotion. After her exposé on a city councilman's kickbacks led to lawsuits and a sidelined career. The footage of Ethan's stunned expression stirred something in her, a flicker of the old fire that had driven her to unearth truths others ignored. But it was the faint, desperate shouts of 2 girls in the background. "He's innocent! We saw the real thief." That hooked her, their voices cutting through the media's sensationalist din like a plea she couldn't shake. Sarah had been at the gala, covering it for a fluff piece, and though she'd stood far from the chaos, those cries had pierced her, raw and unpolished, the kind of truth children speak when adults have learned to lie. Her editor had dismissed her pitch to investigate, scoffing, "Street kids aren't sources, Sarah. Stick to wine bars." But the memory of her own childhood, scraping by in a rundown trailer park, made her see those girls not as nuisances, but as voices the world silenced. She grabbed her worn leather jacket and a small recorder, determined to find them, driven by a need to reclaim the journalist she'd been before the system chewed her up. The city's underbelly was her first map, its soup kitchens and shelters places she'd once covered, so she started at a community center near the hotel, flashing an old press badge to coax staff into talking. A volunteer recalled seeing twin girls begging nearby, always together, never staying long, their wary eyes scanning for threats. Sarah moved to the streets, questioning vendors and buskers. Her questions met with shrugs until a hot dog vendor nodded toward a derelict warehouse district, saying, Seen kids like that scavenging there, but they're ghosts, lady. Good luck. The warehouse loomed like a forgotten giant, its broken windows gaping under a grey sky, and Sarah slipped through a rusted gate, her boots crunching on gravel as she called out, "Hello, I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to talk." Silence answered, thick with the weight of distrust, but a faint scuffle behind a stack of crates betrayed movement, and Sarah's heart raced. She was close. She softened her voice. "I heard you at the gala. You said Ethan Holt was innocent. I believe you." A whisper, then a hushed argument, and finally two small figures emerged, Mia and Ava, their identical faces smudged with dirt, their oversized coats hanging like borrowed armor. Sarah knelt to their level, her smile gentle, and said, "I'm Sarah, a reporter. I want to help Ethan, but I need your story." Mia, the bolder twin, studied her, her gaze sharp from years of sizing up strangers, while Ava clung to her sister's sleeve, hesitant but curious. After a tense moment, Mia spoke. "We saw a woman by the big glass building. She had a shiny bracelet. Told a guy to make it look like Ethan stole money." Sarah's pulse quickened. Ethan's sister, Vanessa, was known for a distinctive silver bracelet, a detail too specific to be coincidence. She offered the girls a granola bar from her bag, watching their hungry hands snatch it, and asked, "Can you tell me more where you were, what she said?" The twins recounted their eavesdropping behind a dumpster, the woman's voice cold, as she handed over a USB drive saying, "Ethan's name needs to be on every transaction. No traces back to me." Sarah's mind raced, piecing together a frame-up, but she saw fear in the girls' eyes, their bodies tensing at every distant sound, survivors who knew the cost of being noticed. She thought of her own past, how a teacher's kindness had pulled her from despair, and said, "You're brave for speaking up, but it's not safe here. Come with me, just for tonight. I have a warm place and food." Mia hesitated. "We don't trust grown-ups, they always want something." But Ava's hopeful glance softened her, and they nodded, clutching each other's hands. Sarah led them to her apartment, a modest space cluttered with old notebooks and faded awards, and fixed them hot cocoa, the first warm drink they'd had in weeks. As they sipped, Sarah learned fragments of their story: orphaned, run away from foster care, surviving by instinct, their bond the only constant in a world that discarded them. The twins' courage, their willingness to risk everything for a stranger's justice, cracked something open in Sarah, a resolve to protect them, not just as sources, but as children who deserved safety. She set up blankets on her couch, promising, "Oh, you're safe here, we'll figure this out together." Mia, still wary, asked, "What if the bracelet lady finds us?" Sarah's jaw tightened, knowing Vanessa's influence and wealth could reach far, and said, "She won't. I'll make sure of it." As the girls drifted to sleep, their small forms curled together, Sarah sat at her desk, scribbling notes, the twins' words a spark reigniting her purpose. She knew the road ahead was treacherous. Vanessa's power, the system's bias against kids like Mia and Ava, her own tarnished reputation. But their trust, fragile and hard-won, was a responsibility she couldn't betray. The city outside buzzed with rumors of Ethan's guilt, but in this quiet apartment, a new alliance formed, three unlikely souls united by a truth the world wasn't ready to hear. Sarah Brooks sat at her cluttered kitchen table, the dim glow of a single lamp illuminating stacks of financial reports and scribbled notes, her laptop screen casting a pale light across her determined face as she dug deeper into the ascent foundations. Records fueled by the twins' account of Vanessa's plot. 3 days had passed since Mia and Ava had taken refuge in her apartment, their presence transforming the space with small signs of life, crayon drawings taped to the fridge, a pair of mismatched socks drying on a chair. Yet the weight of their secret hung heavy, a truth that could free Ethan Holt but endanger them all. Sarah had contacted Rachel Carter, Ethan's sharp-witted lawyer, sharing the girl's story over a secure call, and now they met in a quiet diner far from the city's prying eyes, poring over documents that hinted at doctored transactions. Rachel, her auburn hair pulled back tightly, pointed to a series of transfers labeled as consulting fees that funneled millions to shell companies, all bearing Ethan's digital signature, but initiated during times he was abroad, verifiable by travel logs. Sarah's instincts, honed by years of chasing corruption, screamed setup, and she leaned forward, whispering. The twins saw Vanessa with a USB drive, telling someone to pin it on Ethan. Her silver bracelet was unmistakable. Rachel's eyes narrowed, recognizing Vanessa's accessory from countless boardroom photos, and she agreed to subpoena the Foundation's server logs, hoping to trace who accessed Ethan's account. Back at the apartment, Sarah watched Mia and Ava play a makeshift game of checkers with bottle caps, their laughter a fragile melody against the city's distant roar, but their guarded glances at the locked door betrayed their fear of being found. Over bowls of soup, they opened up about their life on the streets, stealing bread to survive, hiding from gangs, the ache of missing their parents' bedtime stories, and Sarah's heart clenched, seeing her younger self in their resilience. A girl who'd clawed her way out of poverty, only to be sidelined by a system that punished truth-tellers. She promised them, "We're close to proving Ethan's innocent, but you need to stay hidden just a bit longer." And their solemn nods showed a trust that both warmed and terrified her. Sarah's late-night digging uncovered Vanessa's motive, a failed real estate venture that left her with crippling debts, hidden from Ethan but threatening to unravel her polished facade, especially after he announced an audit of the Foundation's books, a move that would expose her siphoning funds to cover her losses. The puzzle pieces snapped together. Vanessa had framed her brother to save herself, betting on his reputation to take the fall. Sarah shared this with Rachel, who secured a grainy security video from the Foundation's alley, showing a woman with a silver bracelet handing a USB drive to a man in shadows, the timestamp matching the twins' account. The video, though not definitive, was a start, and Sarah felt a surge of hope, but danger loomed as she noticed a black sedan idling across her street, its tinted windows hiding watchful eyes. She taught the girls to avoid windows, to freeze. At any knock, their street-honed instincts kicking in as they whispered about the bracelet lady finding them. Sarah's own past failures haunted her, a story that cost her career, friends, a home. Yet the twins' courage pushed her forward, their belief in her rekindling a purpose she'd thought lost. She contacted an old source, a hacker who owed her a favor, and obtained metadata from the Foundation's servers, revealing that Vanessa's login had altered files hours before Ethan's credentials were used, a digital fingerprint of betrayal. Rachel warned that the evidence, while strong, needed more to sway a judge, as the twins' testimony alone might be dismissed as unreliable given their age and circumstances. Sarah's resolve hardened. She couldn't let Mia and Ava's voices be silenced again, not when they'd risked everything to speak. One evening, as the girls drew portraits of each other, Ava asked, "Miss Sarah, if we help Ethan, will we have to go back to the streets?" The question pierced Sarah, who hadn't planned beyond the case, but their wide eyes, so full of hope and fear, demanded an answer. She knelt beside them, saying, "You're not going anywhere you don't want. I'm here for you, no matter what." Her words a vow she hadn't expected to make, binding her to these children in ways deeper than she'd imagined. Mia, ever skeptical, tested her. "Even if the bad lady comes?" And Sarah nodded. "Especially then. We're a team now." The girl's shy smiles, rare and precious, fueled her late nights, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she cross-referenced Vanessa's financial trail, uncovering a hidden account linked to the shell companies, a thread Rachel could pull in court. The sedan outside appeared more often, its presence a silent threat, and Sarah's sleep grew fitful, haunted by visions of losing the twins to Vanessa's reach or the system's cold machinery. She bought them new clothes, simple jeans and sweaters, and watched their awe at having something clean, something theirs, a reminder of how little they'd had and how much they deserved. Rachel called with news. The server logs confirmed unauthorized access from Vanessa's personal device, enough to request an emergency hearing, but they needed to protect the twins until then. Sarah arranged for a neighbor, a retired nurse with a kind heart, to check on them during her outings, ensuring they felt safe while she chased leads. The city's skyline glittered beyond her window, a facade of wealth hiding its cruelties, but inside her small apartment, a fragile family was forming, built on shared secrets and a fight for justice. Sarah looked at the girls' drawings. Now, pinned above her desk, and saw not just evidence but a promise, to Mia and Ava, to Ethan, to herself, that truth could still win, if only they held fast against the gathering storm. The fluorescent hum of Rachel Carter's law office buzzed overhead as Sarah Brooks and Ethan's lawyer finalized their plan, the air thick with the stakes of a gambit that could either free an innocent man or unravel under Vanessa Holt's cunning. Her silver bracelet now a symbol of betrayal etched in their minds. Rachel, her face taut with focus, adjusted a hidden recorder beneath her blazer, preparing to meet Vanessa under the guise of negotiating a plea deal for Ethan, hoping to coax an admission that would seal the case. Sarah stayed behind, pacing, her apartment where Mia and Ava sat quietly, their usual chatter subdued as they sensed the gravity of the day, their small hands clutching mugs of tea Sarah had made to calm their nerves. Rachel met Vanessa in a sleek conference room at the Ascent Foundation, the city's skyline a stark backdrop through floor-to-ceiling windows, and began with calculated deference, suggesting Ethan might confess if offered leniency. Vanessa, poised in a tailored suit, her bracelet glinting under the lights, smirked. "He should have known better than to dig into my books," her words laced with arrogance, and as Rachel pressed, hinting at discrepancies, Vanessa snapped, "I protected our legacy." Ethan was too naive to see the bigger picture. The recorder caught every syllable, a confession that, paired with the security video and server logs, formed a net Rachel could cast in court. Sarah, meanwhile, kept the twins occupied with a puzzle, their eyes darting to her for reassurance, and she shared a gentle story of her own childhood, how a librarian's encouragement had sparked her love for truth, hoping to ease their fear of the looming hearing. Mia, her voice small, asked, "Will we have to talk in front of everyone?" And Sarah nodded, "Yes, but I'll be there. You're stronger than you know." Ava's fingers twisted her sleeve. "What if they don't believe us? Like at the gala?" But Sarah knelt, meeting their gazes. "They will, because you're telling the truth, and that's unstoppable." Rachel called late that night, her voice electric with triumph. The recording a goldmine, and she'd filed for an emergency hearing, citing new evidence to overturn Ethan's detention. The courtroom, a cavern of polished wood and stern faces, buzzed with reporters as the judge, a woman with a no-nonsense stare, reviewed the case, her gavel a heartbeat in the tense air. Rachel presented the video, showing Vanessa's exchange in the alley, followed by the server logs proving her unauthorized access, and finally played the recording, Vanessa's voice echoing her guilt, each word a hammer against her facade. Sarah sat with Mia and Ava in the gallery, their hands clasped, their breaths shallow as they took the stand, their patched coats replaced by clean sweaters Sarah had bought, a small armor against the world's judgment. Mia spoke first, her voice steady, recounting the overheard plot, the USB drive, the bracelet, while Ava added details, her softer tone unwavering, their sincerity piercing the room's skepticism. The judge's eyes softened, and when Rachel submitted the twins' testimony alongside the financial trail, millions diverted to Vanessa's hidden accounts, the case collapsed, Ethan's innocence undeniable. Vanessa, her face pale, was arrested. On the spot, her bracelet clinking as cuffs replaced it, her empire of lies crumbling under the weight of two girls' courage. Ethan, released from the holding facility, stepped into Sarah's apartment hours later, his frame gaunt from days in custody, his eyes brimming with gratitude as he saw Mia and Ava waiting, their faces alight with relief. He knelt before them, his voice thick. "You saved me, I don't know how to thank you." And Mia, bold as ever, said, "You gave us food once, made us feel like people. We had to help." Ava nodded. "You saw us when nobody did," her words cracking Ethan's composure, tears spilling as he realized the depth of their loyalty, born from a fleeting act of kindness. Sarah watched, her own eyes misty, seeing the family she'd never had take shape in this moment, a bond forged in shared struggle. Ethan, his voice steadying, asked, "Would you let me take care of you, keep you together, as my daughters?" The twins froze, their lives of loss teaching them to distrust such promises, but Mia's hand found Ava's and they nodded, a silent yes that filled the room with warmth. Sarah, stepping back, felt her role shift, no longer just a protector, but a witness to a new beginning, her heart swelling with pride for the girls who'd changed everything. Ethan turned to her. "You made this possible, Sarah. You believed them." And she shrugged. "They made me believe in myself again." Her words a quiet confession of her own redemption. The city outside churned with headlines of Ethan's exoneration, Vanessa's downfall, and the mysterious twins who'd turned the tide. But in this small apartment, the world was still, the air alive with possibility. Mia and Ava, hesitant but hopeful, asked Ethan about the home he promised. "Will it have a garden?" And he laughed. "The biggest one we can plant," his vision already blooming with their future. Sarah handed them a notebook, suggesting they draw their dream house, and as their pencils scratched, she saw not just survivors but children daring to dream, their courage rewriting their story. Ethan's promise to the twins was a vow to rebuild not just his life but theirs, a commitment to honor the unseen voices that had saved him. The hearing's echoes lingered, the judge's final words, "Justice owes you, young ladies," a rare acknowledgement that fueled Sarah's resolve to write their story, to amplify their truth beyond this case. As night fell, the twins leaned against Ethan, their trust a fragile bridge to a life they'd never known, and Sarah knew the fight wasn't over. Vanessa's allies might linger, the system could still fail, but for now, they'd won. A victory carved by the smallest hands. 6 months after the courtroom victory that freed Ethan Holt, the late summer sun bathed a cozy suburban house in golden warmth, its white picket fence framing a garden where Mia and Ava, now 11, knelt in overalls, their hands deep in soil. As they planted marigolds, their laughter mingling with the hum of bees and the scent of freshly turned earth. Ethan, his once gaunt frame filled out, stood nearby, a trowel in hand, his smile soft as he watched the twins bicker playfully over which flowers should line the path, their bond unbroken by the new life he'd promised and delivered. The house, a far cry from the city's cold alleys, was filled with their touches. Bright curtains they'd chosen, a bookshelf stuffed with adventure novels, a kitchen where Ethan burned pancakes but earned their giggles anyway, each moment a step toward healing the years they'd lost. Mia, her boldness now channeled into leading school projects, called out, "Ethan, these need more water," while Ava, her quiet strength blooming in art classes, sketched the garden's layout, her pencil capturing every petal with care. Ethan marveled at their growth, their once wary eyes now bright with trust, a transformation that humbled the man who'd once measured success in dollars and headlines. Across town, Sarah Brooks sat in a bustling newsroom, her desk a fortress of research for her latest exposé, a searing piece on the city's foster care failures, inspired by the twins' story and published to acclaim, restoring her reputation as a journalist who gave voice to the voiceless. She visited Ethan's home often, her role as honorary aunt cemented by weekend baking sessions with the girls, their flour-dusted faces a reminder of the family she'd found when she'd stopped, running from her past. Ethan had returned to the Ascent Foundation, redirecting its mission to support homeless youth, and opened The Haven, a community center named for the sanctuary Mia and Ava had never had, its walls alive with murals they'd helped paint, its rooms offering tutoring, meals, and a safe space for kids the city forgot. The center's ribbon-cutting drew crowds, and when Mia and Ava spoke, their voices clear and proud, thanking Ethan for believing in them, the applause was thunderous, a stark contrast to the gala where their cries went unheard. Sarah's article had made them local heroes, their story sparking donations to the Haven, but the twins shied from the spotlight, preferring quiet evenings with Ethan, where he read them tales of dragons and explorers, his voice a steady anchor in their new world. Vanessa's trial loomed, her guilty plea sparing the girls from testifying again, but the shadow of her betrayal lingered in Ethan's reflective moments, a reminder to guard the trust he'd rebuilt. He'd hired counselors to help Mia and further process their trauma, their sessions unearthing memories of their parents' warmth, which they now wove into their lives, a photo of their mother framed on their nightstand, a bridge between past and present. Sarah, too, had changed, her cynicism softened by the twins' resilience, and she mentored young reporters, urging them to seek the stories no one else saw, her own redemption a quiet victory she shared with the girls over ice cream runs. The Haven became a beacon, its after-school programs packed with kids who reminded Ethan of the twins' early days, and he often joined them for basketball or art. His presence a promise that no child would feel invisible under his watch. Izmir. Faye excelled in math, her quick mind earning her a scholarship to a summer science camp. While Ava's drawings won a local contest, her shy smile at the award ceremony a milestone Ethan captured in a photo he cherished. The garden flourished, a symbol of their rootedness, and when the marigolds bloomed, the twins pressed one into a book. A keepsake of the season, they became a family. Sarah's visits brought stories of her investigations, and the girls listened, wide-eyed, asking if they could be reporters someday, their dreams no longer bound by survival. Ethan, once isolated by wealth, found purpose in fatherhood. His evenings spent helping with homework or planning the Haven's expansion, its second location already breaking ground. The city, once a maze of danger for the twins, now felt like a canvas of possibility, its skyline a backdrop to their new lives, though they never forgot the streets that shaped them, their empathy for the Haven's kids, a legacy of their past. One night, as stars pricked the sky, Ethan tucked the girls into bed, their room aglow with fairy lights they'd strung together, and read a story about a lost princess who found her way home, his voice pausing when Ava murmured, "That's us, isn't it?" He nodded, throat tight. "You found your way, and I'm so proud." Mia, half asleep, added, "And you found us," her words sealing the bond that had rewritten their futures. Sarah, stopping by with a batch of cookies, lingered in the doorway, watching the scene, her heart full knowing she'd helped build this haven, not just for the twins but for herself. The house settled into quiet, the garden outside swaying in the breeze, a testament to roots planted deep by courage and love. The haven's lights burned late, welcoming kids who'd once been shadows, its mission echoing the twins' truth. Even the smallest voices could change the world. Ethan closed the book, kissing their foreheads, and stepped onto the porch, the city's hum a distant song, his life no longer defined by ambition, but by the laughter inside, a melody of belonging that carried into the night. Sarah joined him, her smile soft. "They're going to be okay, Ethan, we all are." And he nodded, the weight of their journey lifting, replaced by gratitude for the girls who'd saved him as much as he'd saved them. The marigolds glowed under the moon, a quiet promise that from the hardest soils beauty could grow, and in this new family forged by truth and trust, the unseen had become unforgettable.